talking. I'll just sign him in.
I'd like to call a meeting to order. The September 14th, 2011 meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. If I could remind you, if anyone has a cell phone or a pager, to kindly turn it off or to silent. If it goes off during the meeting, you'll be asked to leave. Moving on to business. First item is an amended enforcement order, Phoenix Avenue LLC, care of Frank Matthews. Violation location is 55 and 89 Phoenix Avenue. Filling in a bordering land subject to flooding, 100-year floodplain, or 1% floodplain. This is continued from prior meetings and is here for consideration. I know at the last meeting we had requested, or that strike that the applicant had submitted on the date of the meeting for first review some information, and the board was unable to digest and review that information. So for the most part, it was brought back today for review of the information submitted by Mr. Garno on behalf of Mr. Matthews. And I believe Foster Construction was removed also from the enforcement order. So this is just a continuation with respect to the enforcement order as against Phoenix Avenue LLC. I'm looking at the letter from Mr. Garno. I just want to make a couple of comments. I'm looking at the letter submitted by we have several, but there was one dated August 20th, 2011, and another one dated September 3rd, 2011. The September 3rd letter includes the full plans, which was one of my questions, because what had been submitted previously was just a small portion of the plan, with no indication that it was prepared by a registered surveyor. I believe now, at least as far as one plan, but it's still not, it still raises a question in my mind. This is just with respect to the 2002 plan submitted, prepared by Cucchio and Cormier, showing the bordering vegetated wetland. My questions on this particular issue, and perhaps, Craig, you can relay this back to Mr. Garno. I know Mr. Garno was requesting a rescission of the enforcement order, and to be honest with you, I'm not prepared to go that direction. I'm really, he's relying and has submitted 4 separate plans with 4 separate exhibits, and is expecting us to rely upon measurements that we can't verify because he's not letting us on the property, and he's not letting anyone from the city on the property. I'm looking at portions of a plan. There's no way to determine, where on the site, other than just guesswork, these plans are, where the fill was placed, and I know he's indicated, a particular flood elevation, but since 1992, FEMA has changed their flood elevation datum in the city of Lowell 3 times. Once in 1992, another time in 2006, and then again in either 2010 or 2011. So we have 3 separate changes by FEMA as to the flood elevations in the city, and whether or not this particular site was impacted based on the historical information that's been submitted, I'm going to suggest is at this point irrelevant. What we need to see, and right now FEMA is indicating, based on the evidence that we're under the act told to rely on, that this is floodplain. Mr. Garno, on behalf of Mr. Matthews and Phoenix Avenue LLC, at least in my mind, is relying on maps that are 10 years old and older, or 8 years old, or 10 years old and older, to demonstrate where a flood elevation line was. If I may also note, too, that between the 1979 city topo map that was submitted, or a portion of it, and the most recent, he's indicated Exhibit B, there seems to be some fairly significant filling on the site, too. Now, I don't know if that was done pursuant to an order of conditions or not, but there appears that at least closer to the resource area, the brook, and it's hard to follow these the plans that were submitted because they're photographic plans. They just show a black line and they're crossing over other overlays that were on the city topo, so it's hard to know whether or not they're elevations or showing some other feature. You can kind of make a guess as to what they are, but we're not here to guess. We're here to determine whether or not a violation has occurred, and whether or not there was filling done in a floodplain or within a bordering vegetated wetland. Now, am I correct in understanding that, at least as far as the original order goes, it was only issued pursuant to a floodplain issue and not a bordering vegetated wetland issue?
On the original enforcement order, the jurisdictional areas were listed as the bordering land subject to flooding and 100-foot buffer zone to wetlands, which includes the city ordinance review area.
So it had both. It had both the buffer zone to the bordering vegetated wetland, and because it appeared that there was some confusion as to whether or not the order just issued with respect to floodplain alone. But it obviously it has issued with respect to both jurisdictional issues. And I just have to reiterate, Phoenix Avenue LLC has submitted Exhibit A, B, C, and D. Exhibits A and B being city old and newer, although I don't know what date he's relying on. He just says newest City of Lowell topographic map. And then C and D, which one is a 1990 or a portion of a 1992 plan, the other one is a portion of a 2002 plan. And in his accompanying letter dated August 22nd, he's indicating a lot of directions, he's indicating a lot of measurements, and these are not indicated on the plan where these measurements are, where they were taken from. He's indicating the back of a building. There's several buildings on this site. I have no idea what building he's referring to, or what portion of any building he's referring to. He's indicating distances from buildings without any reference as to where those distances end up, where he started from or where he terminated to, and we have no way of verifying that information. We're just supposed to take his word for it. As I said, and I'm going to conclude with that, I'm unprepared based on the information that's been submitted to even come close to entertaining a rescission of the order. And as I said, I'm leaning the other way towards referring this to the law department for further action. And I'm a little flummoxed by the information coming back from Phoenix Avenue LLC. I think they would I'll leave it at that. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to open it up now for any further comments from the board. But right now, I'm not seeing any supporting evidence. At least, it may be here, but it's not anything that can be independently verified from the submittals. So, until the applicant wants to come in and justify it, Mr. Garno, I believe he's a registered engineer. He's a wetland scientist, so,
registered forest.
So, he has experience in preparing plans. He's not an engineer, so he can't prepare and stamp a plan as to, site and whatnot, but he can speak to wetland resource areas, at least as far as bordering vegetated wetlands go. Floodplain, I would believe, would be outside of his area of expertise, and floodplain elevations. An elevation calculation is properly done by a civil engineer and not a wetland scientist. So I'm going to open this up at this point for any further comment by the board. Commissioner Lovely?
No further comments other than concurring with what you just said at the last meeting. I think we were pretty clear about the need to verify on-site with a site visit, the actual elevations, and not being able to do that puts us at a disadvantage to bring this to a close.
Commissioner Chalupka? Commissioner Varnum?
I was willing to consider lifting the enforcement order if we had received, as was requested, a certification that the material that was dumped there had been removed. We did receive a notice from one of the trucking companies, maybe the only one, we don't know that either, of how much fill they dumped there, but we have not received any indication of who removed the fill or where it was removed to, or if there was any additional trucking companies that might have dumped fill there. And that's what I'm looking for. If the fill were removed, I'd be willing to consider lifting this enforcement order at this time. But I would need documentation to that effect.
Commissioner Moore?
I agree with both of those points. The need for the bills of lading for both the incoming and outgoing materials deposited and context on these maps, so we actually know where we're looking and where the area of interest is.
Commissioner Mellon?
I agree with what the chairman has said and what Commissioner Varnum has said about the last meeting. And the new evidence is nothing more than Xerox copies of pieces of certain plans that go back many years, but nothing compiled that pulls it all together. And there's still a lot of answers that we need.
All right, is there anyone here who's interested in this on behalf of Phoenix Avenue LLC? All right. At this point in time, did Mr. Garno or any representative from Phoenix Avenue LLC, I know Attorney Barton was here, somewhat tangential to this, well, really unrelated to this on another project, but has anyone communicated, Craig, with you or your office as to, it seems from the letters that Mr. Garno may be here at our next meeting?
He did pass along an email to me today, which I provided to the commission about his desire to be here, but unfortunately he was unavailable. I think that were this to be continued at the next meeting, he would be here. The question is, it was previously ratified, so that
There's no reason to continue it. It's been ratified. It's an outstanding violation in enforcement order, and the representative on behalf of Phoenix Avenue LLC has requested that we rescind it. I'm not getting a sense that the commission is at that stage yet.
Well, I will respond to his email and communicate that if more evidence is brought forward or he requests clarification on what could be provided, I think the commission has given a fairly straightforward request as to updated information about the site, access to the site, and or evidence documenting the removal of the material, all of which are as additional information have been requested. And that if that comes forward, then he can be back on the agenda, I suppose, and we'll be back here. But in the absence of that, there would be no reason for him to come back, I don't believe, at the moment.
All right. Well, there's got to be some incentive to do something and to comply with the order. You know, what I would like to at least discuss or propose at this point in time is that we're coming back on the 28th of September. Is that right? That, you know, a representative from Phoenix Avenue LLC address this commission on that date, and provides, you know, through you, provide some satisfaction to what we've requested as part of the original order, the original enforcement order, because we as a commission are not getting a sense that, you know, those issues and what was required as a part of the enforcement order has been complied with yet. What I would suggest perhaps is and we don't have to take this up tonight, but just, you know, open it up, is that, you know, either Mr. Garno or someone else on behalf of Phoenix Avenue LLC be here at the next meeting, and, you know, barring that and barring compliance or satisfaction of our questions, then, you know, at that point in time, you know, that it be referred to the law department for further action. I don't think we need to make a motion tonight. You know, I think all we really need to do, Craig, is to have you communicate with Mr. Matthews. I mean, certainly, or Phoenix Avenue LLC. Certainly, they could have been here tonight, and I understand that, you know, schedules can be conflicted, but I'd like to have someone, you know, and certainly in no soft terms, invite them to be here at our next meeting. You know, perhaps this can be, you know, oftentimes these can be addressed and satisfied just through explaining them, but we're not getting a sense that it's been done. And I think the request for the bills of lading is a very reasonable request. Those should be easily supplied, and those were part of the original order. So.
Yeah, and as a part of that, I did request any information that Foster Contracting had, and Foster has been very responsive to all my requests for information. They seem to have very little, and that was part of at the last meeting, their removal from the enforcement order.
Okay, but Phoenix Avenue LLC should have access to those. They are the landowner and allowed this, presumably allowed this to happen. So they should have access to that information also. All right. Is there anything else further on this? Again, I don't think we need to continue it or anything like that. It's just the order is already issued. It's just being brought up and brought forward. So. Perhaps, I don't think, do we need to, at least as a point of procedure, do we need to make a motion just to have it placed on the agenda for the next meeting?
You could. I believe that we have the ability to alter the agenda within the timeframe as prescribed by open meeting law as we see fit. There's, again, having been an action of the commission, there's no need for public notification of this. There's no issue with the timing of it as far as being placed in the agenda.
What was the time frame placed on the order?
I believe it was issued July 29th, and at that time, I had given them 10 days to come back to us with information, basic information about what had happened and corrective action, principally to remove the material, and then by 20 days later, on August 20th, to have a site visit or some material submitted to the satisfaction of the commission that the material had been removed from site and that any alterations to the jurisdictional areas had been corrected, rather.
And that was subsequent to our no, that was before our last meeting.
Yes, both of those timelines had passed before the last meeting.
Okay, but still, we still haven't, we had requested the bills of lading and whatnot as part of the order, and we still haven't received those. Was there a time limit to supply that information?
Well, at the last meeting, although the initial time frame had lapsed, we had tried to give further clarification as to what was requested for this meeting tonight.
All right, then what I'll do then, is I'll request a motion to extend the time limit to comply do we want to go, Commission, do we want to go as late as the next meeting or just next week? And then also require a representative from Phoenix Avenue LLC to be here on September 28th. I mean, just to keep it coherent, I'd just suggest, continue it till September 28th in full compliance, 1 week in advance, and that'll give us a chance to verify the information. So compliance with, the requests for the bills of lading and the issues raised tonight by, on or before the 21st of September. So at least if I could have a motion to table this matter until the 28th.
Move to continue till the 28th and also to request the missing materials to be delivered 1 week before that meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Moving on. It's a notice of intent. Mark Young, City of Lowell, Regional Wastewater Utility, concerning DEP file number 2060680. The project location is 61 First Street Boulevard, and it's construction of an underground diversion and control structure and bordering land subject to flooding, 25-foot riverfront area, 100-foot buffer zone to an inland bank to the Merrimack River. Mr. Young, if you could kindly identify yourself for the record.
Yes, my name is Mark Young. I'm the director at the Lowell Regional Wastewater Utility. Thank you for allowing me to speak. This project is obviously extremely important to the city in that it is a continuation of our long-term control plan for CSO mitigation and will allow the city to comply with EPA and DEP mandates for CSO mitigation and control. The project will use existing infrastructure, which is pretty exciting. I know it's kind of strange to be excited about soil projects, but for us it's a very cost-effective method for addressing and help us address our CSOs by using the infrastructure that's already there. What we're looking to gain, the benefit from this project, is storage along the existing intercept along the Merrimack River of up to 1 million gallons. And this would equate to a savings, or when I say savings, a direct non-discharge of 20 million gallons to the Merrimack River by being able to store in the interceptor and then bring it to the utility when flows subside. So this is an important project to the city, as well as to water quality for the Merrimack River to prevent CSO discharges. And it's, again, allows us to comply with EPA and DEP mandates for CSO control and mitigation. We were here 2 weeks ago to give a presentation to the commission. I know we've been awaiting some correspondence from other agencies, and if it would please the commission, if you would like just a quick review of the project, Sean Lavoie from CDM could do that.
Good evening. Sean Lavoie from CDM. Just give you a brief overview of what we had previously presented at the last meeting. As Mark had said, this project is using the existing infrastructure along the Merrimack River. The interceptor at that point is a 96-inch RCP, reinforced concrete pipe, which could store 1 million gallons if we use a gate. What we would like to do is to install 2 structures, one on the existing interceptor and the other up further inland outside of the 100-year floodplain. That way it can be used during high flow events. Basically what it does is it diverts the flow inland during dry weather flow and then back towards the interceptor and further on to the wastewater treatment plant. During wet weather flows, the gate will shut and store the water within the interceptor. From there to 3,000 feet up is the West Street station. So in between those 2 spots is where the water will be saved or stored during wet weather events. When the water subsides or the flow subsides, the gates will be opened and the water will continue to the wastewater treatment plant where it will be treated. To do this, we are going to be using bypass pumping for a month. We do need to tap into the existing infrastructure. The bypass pumping will be laid on the inland side of the bike path. This section of the bike path will be closed to pedestrians and hikers, walkers, bikers during the whole time that we are constructing. The construction is anticipated for this winter. So we don't anticipate too many people down there at that time, but in case there are, it will be closed off and proper signage will be there, letting people know that it is under construction in that area. Also on the site is a dog park, which is utilized in the winter again. Probably not as much, but we still want to facilitate to people who use it. A temporary parking will be set up outside the fence so that they can continue to use it. And a site access will be open for construction, a separate one, and pretty much users can still use it while we're constructing. And again, this will be done during the winter. To refer to the bypass pumping to show the limits, if you would like to look at Figure 5, that shows the route, proposed route from an existing manhole upstream of the site to an existing manhole that is right there on the site, known as Manhole 21. Manhole 21 is part of the existing Reed Street diversion structure. And again, that's another existing infrastructure piece on what is known as Reed Street or 61 First Street.
Now, I know the DEP and the National Heritage Foundation had very few comments with respect to this. I also note that there's going to be some significant tree cutting going on, and I see that you've submitted back to Craig some possible replantings and replacement. I'd like to, well, first of all, what I'd like to do is open this up for questions from the commission with respect to the work and what we need to do as far as conditioning this with respect to the act, and any further information that we require, or additional work that needs to be shown as part of the order, as part of the notice of intent or the submitted plans. But also I'd like to discuss the some sort of replanting schedule and trees, because it's going to be a fairly large replanting project, and I don't know who the city contracts with, or who, whether there's in place any sort of arbory that the city uses or has access to trees. But I just want to make sure that this is part of this project's budget, because this, to me, it seems like this is going to be a fairly significant cost to restabilize the site after the work has been done. So, yeah, if you have anything to say, sure, absolutely.
Thank you. Isabel Turcantonis, professional wetland scientist with Camp Dresser McKee.
Can you talk into the microphone, please?
Oh. Okay, sorry. Yes, we've been before the commission before for previous infrastructure improvements projects. As the commission may be aware, a lot of these underground facilities, the city's limited with what they can do as far as replanting above many of the infrastructure that's below ground, for the reason that tree roots and the weight of trees can also compromise the structural stability of these structures. So there's no option to replant above these structures. Right now, the mitigation that we're proposing is to loam and seed, restore to pre-construction contours, loam and seed, and the seed mix that was chosen, we looked into it, is a conservation wildlife seed mix. Provide native wildflowers, legumes, native to the area. If the commission will look at the tree inventory that was conducted for the project, many of the trees in the area, valuable trees, I understand any tree is a valuable tree, but they are small diameter trees. The whole area was previously dug up to install the interceptor that runs along the path. So the actual slope that we're going to be working on, that the city will be working on, is fill material with various gullies. And I would ask the commission to refer to the pictures provided in attachment C, and without doing the site walk, you can see that the area really does provide limited wildlife habitat, so much so that even though this whole area is mapped as wildlife, rare and endangered species habitat under natural heritage, they came back with a no adverse effect under the Wetlands Protection Act and a no take warranted under the MESA. Because it's small diameter trees that are not really valuable for bald eagles as far as perching and roosting is considered. I understand trees are valuable regardless, but I would ask that the commission take a walk through the area before requiring the city to spend money on a significant planting plan that really wouldn't make a huge difference in this area, I would say. It's a narrow area. You can't see that in the pictures, but it's the majority of the greenery that you see in these photos is actually the Japanese knotweed that's located upstream and downstream of the project area. I know it would be ideal to, Craig had mentioned, invasive species. In order to target invasive species in this small project area, the city would need to invest in a larger plan, master plan, to target invasive species for an actual planting plan to take place. I'm afraid that a planting plan of small tree saplings or even, just small potted plantings in that area would be overcome with Japanese knotweed easily within a year. This Japanese knotweed is thick and thriving in the area, upstream and downstream. I'm just saying it would be funds that would go to waste down the road. I don't think the young plantings that would survive in the area. They'd be overcome with Japanese knotweed within a year.
How large do these Japanese knotweeds get? How inches in caliper?
Well, I can tell you if you look at photo number 6, that understory that you see right there is all Japanese knotweed, and it's actually making its way in. It's part of the understory now in the tree layer, which you don't tend to see a lot of Japanese knotweed in an understory because of the shade. They thrive with sun. But I'm just saying that unless you were to plant large diameter trees right from the start that has good canopy, the Japanese knotweed will overtake the area. It would be a lot of funds spent on plantings that would probably not thrive in the area.
Well, what's going to be done then to stabilize the area? Is the Japanese, since it's an invasive, is that going to be remediated from the site?
If the city, if Lowell Regional were to target Japanese knotweed in that small project area, less than a year, there's Japanese knotweed up and down the Merrimack River. In less than a year, people who are familiar with Japanese knotweed, it'll overtake any remedial efforts unless it's part of a larger master plan to target invasive species.
But we have a chicken and an egg problem here because it's developments like this that have allowed the Japanese knotweed to take root. And it's because we're killing off the overstory in the shade that it's allowed this to come in and take over. I'm not convinced that this is the right tack to take, and just to strip and leave and let and let an invasive species just take a greater foothold in the area. It's a bad thing. This area, there's many large caliber trees in this area that are going to be cut, and whether or not the eagles are fishing from that side of from the northern side of the bank or the southern side of the bank, regardless, there's 2 nesting bald eagles directly in this area that utilize the Merrimack River for their livelihood. They depend on these large overhanging trees. So we need to put our thinking caps on and figure out a solution to this, because it's these incremental projects, and I'm not here saying that this is a very important project, but we can't forget what we're here for to begin with. This is the Conservation Commission. This isn't the Lowell Regional Wastewater Utility Commission.
Oh, I understand that.
Okay.
One of the pluses for this is minimizing CSOs to the Merrimack River, which will benefit the short-nosed sturgeon in the river.
Correct. That's
Box
only
elder
one.
but box elder are not primary habitat for bald eagle. They wouldn't even use these small diameter trees to roost or to perch, it's just noisy. It's next to the highway. I understand the importance of a planting plan, but we can't even plant trees on top of infrastructure that the city is spending millions of dollars on to construct and just have the roots of trees. It's not possible.
Well, what's an alternative solution? And you know, losing an 8, 10, 12-inch caliper tree, that's a pretty big deal. And losing hundreds of them is a bigger deal. You know, so
I would recommend that the commission walk the area before they require a planting plan to really get a feel for what this is. 1 inch equals 20 feet, not the typical 40 feet. It's not a large area. And in fact, the city, we worked diligently with Lowell Regional. They switched their plans around as far as construction, staging, obviously utilizing existing paved areas for staging, stockpiling, and as far as construction access, they are going the longer route per our request to minimize any additional tree clearing. If we saw a route that didn't require tree clearing, although it meant, you know, a longer access, so be it. It is what it is. They're not doing any tree clearing for construction access or for staging, which is something I would ask the commission to consider. Overall, it's a beneficial project to the environment, and I would just remind the commission of that as well. Believe me, I understand. I'm strict on tree plantings, but it's just, given the infrastructure that's going below ground, tree plantings aren't an option. And so instead of using the typical erosion control seed mix that's used, we looked into the conservation wildlife seed mix. Again, native materials for that. The area will be stabilized, and in fact, the slope will be better stabilized than what it is now. It's apparent from the gullies that are in the area now. That's...
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a couple
Yep,
questions?
Commissioner Lovely.
Sure, thank you. Just to put this in context, we're talking about a little over 7,000 square feet of area
Correct.
that'll be disturbed, so about 1/6 of an acre.
Correct.
And,
And there's a total of, there are trees, our tree inventory
no, I have that in front of me.
delineated how many?
But that being said, the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife found that there was no adverse impact to habitat with this clearing being done.
Correct, because it's box elder just is not prime habitat.
Then we have the issue of the technical practicability of being able to maintain erosion control over a structure that we can't have be compromised by deep-rooted species, correct?
Correct.
And then fourth, the nutrient load reduction from avoiding up to 20 million gallons of CSO discharges per year from that area, you know, would have an environmental benefit to the water quality of the Merrimack River. Is that what you're saying?
Correct, that's what would occur by reducing and abating CSOs.
So, with regard to, if I understand it correctly, Mr. Chairman, with regard to our role of protecting the resource, it sounds like we have a trade-off of reducing nutrient loading to a watershed versus losing potential terrestrial habitat, you know, in perpetuity, because if you can't have deep-rooted tree species there, but if the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife are saying that it's not a, you know, significant resource from that perspective, then I think what you're asking the commission, if I got it correctly, is to make a determination with those two perspectives in mind.
Yep, and consider also that the bypass pumping, it would have been a preferred option by the contractor to have it on the riverward side of the path. We asked that they move it inland and manage it on the inland side just to stay out of the 25-foot buffer zone. There's no clearing on inland bank. We're not working on inland bank. No clearing within the 25-foot riverfront area.
In your long-term monitoring plan, you'll be making sure there's no deep-rooted species, you know, I mean, is that part of your plan to kind of make sure that you don't have a compromise of the interceptor trench at some point in the future?
Yes.
That'll be ongoing maintenance to make sure that doesn't happen, because I'm sure, as everybody knows, that's not a good thing when you have roots that can crack and separate pipes. Then you will have sewage leaking into the river.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Chalupka?
I'm just wondering if the knotweed is so invasive that it can kill the trees in the area, would it not affect the grass you plan to plant?
No, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, the area will be seeded and maintained. It's hard to say. I will be honest with the commission. I've walked a long stretch upstream and downstream, and there's a lot of knotweed. It's a problem in many of the northeast states right now. And unless there's a targeted master plan or a long-term plan to address invasive species, it's really hard to manage it on a small site. It's just not cost effective unless you're looking to target a very large area first.
Commissioner Varnum? Commissioner Moore?
No comment.
Commissioner Mellon?
I'd like to see a site plan, a site visit, like you suggested.
I would recommend that.
Before any planting decision is made. I walk the Riverwalk a lot, but I wouldn't know one tree from another down there.
I would recommend that the commission do, if a tree planting plan is something that the commission is going to require Lowell Regional, I would suggest that.
When I spoke earlier, I alluded to the fact that this was part of our long-term control plan for dealing with CSO and mitigation to stop CSO discharge to the Merrimack River. This is a targeted project for this area, but there is a strong potential for another project to shortly follow within maybe a couple of years or a year or two in this very same area in regards to wet weather treatment and possibly even flood pumping. So I think it would be premature to come up with a extensive planting plan when it may have to be, work may go over that in the future. I would think that a future project would be the time when we want to come up with a comprehensive planting plan, and it would be more appropriate because it would be permanent. So I offer that consideration to the commission.
All right, let me, is there, and I don't want to say a tree is a tree, but it is. I'm not, and I understand your position, and I'm not here, at least in my mind, to say, no, we're putting trees back in place. That wasn't my point, and perhaps I didn't say it as directly as that. What I'm more interested, though, in is when we take out a number of large caliber trees, I like to have some sort of, especially in a resource area, I like to have some sort of plan to make that up, to make that stock up, that knowing in 25, 30 years that we're going to have some large caliber trees in the near vicinity of the ones that were removed. We've got a mature overstory that's there now, and albeit a small one. I mean, 7,000 square feet is 7,000 square feet, but you start adding them up, and it gets to be large tracts, of land. And I'm sure some of the people in Pawtucketville would consider that incremental 7,000 feet along the Clay Pit Brook, that when they're getting flooded out on an annual basis, when that never used to happen before, it builds up over time. And there's no question that this is a necessary project. I'm not advocating throwing any stones into it. What I'm more concerned with, though, and I think, and it's not a very difficult thing to do, excuse me, that is to plant a tree. We all know that, a single tree draws up more water. This is a storm scepter. You're in high water events, you're using an artificial structure to put water from point A into point B. Just to, correct me if I'm wrong, but in layman's terms, that's what you're doing. And you're delaying it from getting to point C, which is where you're treating it. So you're not getting that sudden rush of water. You're easing the overtaxing of the system. We all know that trees do that all by themselves. And you as a wetland scientist know that trees draw up a remarkable amount of water. And one single mature tree does more than, we humans can do in all our engineering and whatnot, and it does it quite efficiently and quite remarkably all by itself. And it takes up all those nutrients that don't belong in the river, and it does it all by itself. So, there is value to replanting, trees that are being removed from this area. And don't forget, these trees are in very close proximity to a major northeast resource area. Not just for the city of Lowell, but all along the northeast corridor. So I'm again going to say I think it's important, at least in my mind, that we have some sort of replacement. And again, I'm not interested in putting, matching calipers, and I'm not interested in we take down an 8-inch caliper, so we're going to put up, 7.5-inch calipers in their place. No, what I'm more interested in is, we take a mature, stable tree out, that we have some mechanism to put one back in place that's given a fairly reasonable chance of survival and taking root and going into further generations. A single tree, as we all know, in this urban area is difficult for them to root on their own, so they need a little bit of help. And that's all I'm suggesting. Obviously, it can't go over your structure because it's just not good for the structure. It's counterproductive, and chances are the tree wouldn't survive it anyway. But I think, the city owns a lot of land all over the place. I think, that should be investigated. And replacing, and again, it's, as you characterize, you get 7,000 square feet of trees. I don't know how many trees are in the inventory, but certainly this is a doable thing in a project of this size. And again, it's these incremental little removals of significant trees that add up over time. Maybe my colleagues disagree with me. I'm just going to leave it out there for thought.
No, I understand the chair's concern. I neglected to, I forgot that the city may have plans for this site. They're conceptual and part of another phase of the long-term control plan. But just to bring things to perspective as far as this site is concerned, if you have I brought 11 by 17s the last hearing. I can bring this around, but where the paved parking lot is now, this open area here that's used as access to the dog park, there's already existing, this parcel, its intended use for the city is really to address CSO. That was the plan for utilization for use of this site. And from what I understand, the dog park is there on
It's temporary.
borrowed time, maybe. I wasn't involved in the politics around that, but, so the future plans for the site, Mark can explain a little bit further what discussions are going on now with EPA and Army Corps for a pump station and further CSO treatment facility. So, a tree planting or a planting plan, even if it's mixed shrubs with trees, really financially would be costly to the city right now because the area could potentially get ripped up again, most likely. This is like the prime site from what I understand for the Army Corps pump station. And because this isn't part of this project, I forgot, and the city's more in tune with what's planned for the site, but as far as using other city parcels, yeah, I don't know.
I agree with the chairman in regards to your philosophy on trees, and when we do our projects at wastewater, even if it's out of the purview of the Conservation Commission, we cut a tree down, I want to see 2 planted in its place. It's something I don't have to be told by anybody of the importance of trees, I know that. What I'm concerned about in this project is with the potential future use, and I'd say it's more than potential, is that if we plant trees, we're going to be taking them out in a short period of time, and that I want to have a comprehensive tree planting, but the appropriate time is when the other projects are brought in front of the Conservation Commission and this land is fully utilized. Then it would be an appropriate time to address the tree planting issue.
Is that something then that you, Mr. Young, could work with our office, with Craig, to investigate? You know, and again, it doesn't have to be here. It doesn't have to be this particular project site, and I understand that there's future plans on top of this that are coming up, and it certainly doesn't make any economic sense.
And that is why, honestly, the planting plan was not presented
No,
because we spoke to Craig about it, and we mentioned it to Lowell Regional that this could be a concern of both natural heritage and the commission, and I'm sorry, I'm just trying to address the matter
I understand
right
that,
now, and I
but, you
forgot
know,
to
as I said, the city owns a lot of land, so there's got to be other areas that are conducive to some sort of replacement or, you know, replantings. So,
Mr. Chairman, is it possible, just a quick question? I mean, we already have your existing inventory. You were saying that this is part of a larger overall effort to reduce CSO discharges in the city. Wouldn't it be prudent and reasonable to just maintain that inventory? I mean, we take more of a watershed approach now rather than just a site-specific approach, and from that, as part of a watershed approach to addressing CSO discharges to the Merrimack River, couldn't it be possible of having a sort of master tree planting plan that would take into account the watershed that would be potentially affected, therefore allowing you to proceed with this project, you know, but recognizing the chairman's comment and concern that, you know, if you aggregate all these little individual projects together, you could have an environmental impact.
Yes, I would agree with that. That's reasonable.
And there may be opportunity as the city goes back to the site for construction of other structures to even work around here. I would like to note that they are replacing trees that are taken down around the parking lot as part of the construction access where they can.
And I guess, Craig, maybe this is a question for you as a matter of implementation of that approach. I mean, how would we maintain kind of awareness and not lose sight of the fact that, you know, these individual projects, you know, aggregate together, have an impact, and, you know, what would be the appropriate triggers to kind of revisit so we don't lose it, you know, on a project-by-project basis, because, you know, obviously these projects move, you know, on their own timeline, and sometimes we don't take the time to look back. Is there a way to kind of build in a mechanism so we don't lose sight of, you know, what we're talking about now in terms of, you know, maintaining an inventory and considering as part of a, you know, overall master plan that would be done as part of, you know, the city's plans to address CSO discharges?
We could look into a tree master plan. There are a few ways to do that, and we have worked together well in the past. The wastewater's been very responsive and respectful of the commission with the work that they have performed. So I have no doubt that with some thoughtful discussions, we could come up with a system that works. My initial reaction would be the certificate of compliance might be the easiest way to go about this, and in that, at least for this first project, if this is a part of a larger plan for tree plantings associated with CSO work in this reach of the river, then that is the point at which a plan would be in place with, it's a little tricky to require significant off-site work that's not directly related, but again, typically some of the standards involve the same reach of the river and the same general effect on habitat. And as we're talking about this master plan that I think could be responsive to those needs for some mitigation of the trees lost and to enhancement of the riverine environment. Again, taking into account the potential for projects in this area and the potential for land where mitigation could take place. So again, with this project as the start of discussions about a plan, then there may be a way to come up with a very straightforward and something that we could replicate with other projects. If there is another project that comes in on the site, to say, okay, whatever we've generated, we say we have whatever species are of preference to be planted at whatever caliper, at a certain replanting number, and these are the sites where replanting makes sense, that's directly related, again, to the same resource areas that can be undertaken in a permanent way in the most cost-effective manner. And again, so that could be set up through this and brought back for review through the certificate of compliance and then used for future CSO work in this particular area, which again, apparently there are future plans as well. Mr. Young, if you were able to follow what I was, my thought process there, if that makes sense.
My only concern with the certificate of compliance is the certificate of compliance requires the as-built plans, of course, signed off by the engineer. I don't know if that's the best means to address a tree planting plan, given that this work is to be anticipated to be constructed over the winter, with a COC, request maybe submitted in 2012 or 2013.
What I was getting at with the certificate is that would be the timeline at which we could have, if the master plan is something that the commission wishes, that would be the time it would be in place. So it would give us time, it would not hold up an order of conditions, say, it would give us time to initiate conversations and put such a plan in place, and then to present it as a part of the certificate of compliance. If it's one of the conditions placed in the order that simply it's put in place and agreed to, then if it were brought back, it wouldn't hold up a certificate on this project, but would rather be then in place for almost rapid implementation in this reach of the river for future projects.
If I may, I just have 3 comments. One to Commissioner Lovely. One, good points. Obviously, by the way, you cut through it fairly quickly. We have our corporate memory, I guess. I mean, we have the ability, sitting, and that's why we're here, I guess, is to be aware of the various different projects and their cumulative effect. So I suppose we have that. Some sort of master plan, though, sounds like something that perhaps should at least be looked into. Sounds like a good idea to me. The second thing, too, what I understood Craig to say is that we have, as a commission in the past, have had projects come before us with the COC only to request that in order to correct some differences on the plan between the original order and the as-built and whatnot, that some sort of further site stabilization or tree planting schedule be provided, and I think that's what he's alluding to. That we have done this in retrospect. Also, the point being that it was suggested. And don't get me wrong, I'm not here and it's not not as chairman, but as just a voting member of the commission. I'm 100% in favor of this project. It's, if we voted right now, at least for me, it would be yes, and I anticipate a vote tonight. It's just that it's difficult for us to say, okay, well, we're going to use this project, the next project, and at some point in time down the road, we want some sort of tree remediation to go on. I mean, we have to, unfortunately, under the law, we're constrained from project to project to project, and we have to stay within the 4 squares of the project that is presented before us. So perhaps some sort of master plan would be well-based. And my final comment is, and I think Craig sort of alluded to it, I'm not here to shoot the messenger. I mean, I applaud the wastewater utility because, Mr. Young, in my number of years on the commission, you're one of the few city department heads that routinely appear before us with projects, and usually your projects are very well, put forward and whatnot. I mean, some of the city departments we have to drag here kicking and screaming and then some. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. I'm not the ogre I appear to be sometimes. What I'd like to do is open this up for comments if there's no further questions from the commission. Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns regarding this project? Kindly step to the podium and identify yourself for the record, Mr. Goldman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the Lowell Conservation Commission. My name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass., and I wish to be recorded in favor of this. This is a very important project, as Mr. Young has mentioned, because it's an Environmental Protection Agency mandated to separate the combined sewer overflow project, to separate the water mains lines from the sewer lines. Let me make a couple of suggestions. When you do your site visit, it might be a good idea to have Jane Calvin, who is the Executive Director of Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust, go with you. One of the projects that organization did was the 2,000 Trees for 2,000, and Lowell is also a Tree USA city. So it might be beneficial if she goes with you on that site visit and maybe can give some recommendations that would help not only the city, but also the commission. The second thing, particularly in relation to the invasion species, the other thing too is that it is important that when this project is done, that everything is complete. And it is very important that the issues that you brought up, Mr. Chairman, are addressed. And I urge that this commission just follow, for what it's worth, think about that recommendation that I made. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to offer their comments or concerns regarding this project? All right. Point raised during the meeting and also by Mr. Golden. Is there I know Chairman Mellon is somewhat familiar with the site. As he alluded to, he often walks on the Riverwalk. I also am fairly, I have been down on this stretch of the Riverwalk many times, and recently, and am fairly familiar with this site. So I'm don't myself feel that I need a site walk. But if there's any members of the commission who would want to do that, we can schedule it. Otherwise, I don't see why we can't proceed further tonight. But I'm not getting a sense that a site visit is appropriate. So what I'll do is I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
I'll offer a motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right. All right, we have the project under a notice of intent as proposed. Do I have a motion to issue in order of conditions and in light of what's been discussed tonight and at the prior hearing?
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, would the motion be for a standard order of conditions with a special condition related to linking the certificate of compliance with some sort of master plan? Is that?
I wouldn't, for one, even though I am feel the need for replacing the large caliper trees with, something else, for one, wouldn't support linking a condition in this to some sort of future master plan before a COC would issue. I think that's valid in and of itself and valuable in and of itself, and something that should, and we as a commission have a duty to pursue and whatnot, but I wouldn't myself, and I don't know about the rest of the commission, but I myself wouldn't really want to link those two.
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out more or less just the logistics from a protocol process point of view. But that being said, I'd be willing to offer a motion to just order, to move ahead with a standard order of conditions.
Do I have a second?
The standing order of conditions include the DEP recommendations, additional stabilization over the proposed erosion control blanket.
Well, can I have a second, and we'll open it up for discussion?
Okay. Second.
All right, now, Commissioner Mellon.
I recommend that we include the DEP suggestion that the order of conditions include a condition on post-construction monitoring of the bank in the area, and also additional stabilization over the proposed erosion control blanket.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I did not see that DEP comment, so I'm a little out in left field as far as that goes. But that's part of our standard order.
The post-construction monitoring actually it could be construed to exist in some of the language of the order, but I think that if that's specifically what the commissioner wants, then that clearer language may be appropriate. What is very clear in the standard order is strengthened erosion controls may be required as the commission see fits at any time. And so if there's language that say those strengthened erosion controls may specifically relate to stabilization of the blanket as proposed, I believe the Commissioner Mellon stated, then any clarification to the standard order would be appropriate if that's what the commission feels the need to do.
All right, then is it your motion then to include that?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a second on Commissioner Mellon's amendment to the original motion?
I'd be fine.
By Commissioner Lovely. Any further discussion? All in favor of the amendment to the original motion signify by saying aye. Commissioner Lovely?
Aye.
Commissioner Chalupka?
Aye.
Commissioner Varnum?
Aye.
Chair, yes. Commissioner Moore? Aye. Commissioner Mellon?
Aye.
Any further discussion on the primary motion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Commissioner Lovely?
Aye.
Commissioner Chalupka?
Aye.
Commissioner Varnum?
Aye.
Chair, yes. Commissioner Moore? Aye. Commissioner Mellon?
Aye.
It's unanimous on both. Did you get that, Greg? Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Good evening.
Moving on, a request for certificate of compliance. Robert Clow and Carla Vaccaro concerning DEP file number 2060444. And I believe this is for a partial certificate of compliance. The project location is 162 Cashin Street, Lowell, Lot 4. There was some confusion at the prior hearing as to whether this was Lot 3 or 4. What I'd like to do is just indicate that this is 162 Cashin Street. Are we are we certain under the original notice of intent that this was, in order of conditions, that this was Lot 4? I don't want to release the wrong lot.
Yep, if you hold on for 1 second, I think part of the confusion was the application was for a full certificate of compliance,
All right,
although,
why don't we just leave it as 162 Cashin Street, if that's just this particular address?
yeah, but this was actually issued under a previous address that wasn't at 162. That address was issued subsequent to the construction of the house.
All right, well,
And so
we can clear that up as part of, if we issue a partial, we can clear that up as part of that. I don't think we need to get into the nitty-gritty as to, I think most of the commission was there for a site visit and otherwise had visited it separately, so we're familiar with the site. Is there anyone here? No, all right, okay. The engineer had contacted you, they were requesting a continuance on this? Is that?
yes, the commission had expressed a concern with some erosion on the, I believe, northeast or the southeast corner, a more steeply inclined area than had been originally permitted.
All right.
And that had requested,
And the bank stabilization and some sort of ground cover for that upper section?
yes, and Commissioner Mellon had provided me with one example subsequent to that meeting of what appropriate ground cover could be. I passed that along to the applicant's attorney, and provided further guidance based on the vegetative erosion control recommendations from the DEP.
Okay.
So they're selecting and then implementing what works best from the homeowner's aesthetic choice, budgetary choice, and then they'll come back to us with that.
All right, do I have a motion to continue? And again, it was brought to my attention, Craig informed me that a certificate of compliance or request for a certificate of compliance is only good for 20 days or something like that.
Yeah, in theory, you don't need to continue request for a certificate of compliance because it expires after 21 days. And unlike most of our applications, like a notice of intent or a request for determination of applicability, if the commission takes no action, it doesn't consider what's called a constructive approval, and that no action means a yes. There's no recourse for this because the commission has issued the original permit. Then the certificate has to come from the commission, or the commission has to take negative action, which can then be appealed.
All right, well, since this is an active file and the applicant and the landowner are obviously taking steps to clear this up, and have expended real money and have made real efforts and are doing real changes, since, again, this is now an active file, bless you, I'm not of the, to be so rigid as to I think the intent of the law is that, the request has been abandoned and the applicant has walked away from it. I don't think that's the case in this particular case. So what I'd do at this point in time is just entertain a continuance to the next hearing, so.
Move to continue this to the next meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
By Commissioner Lovely, motion by Commissioner Chulupka. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on, request for determination of applicability, Richard Lemoyne, University of Massachusetts at Lowell. 1 University Ave, the project location being 300 Pawtucket Boulevard, which is the UMass Lowell Boathouse, and it's the installation of a prefabricated shed. Are they coming in front of us tonight, Craig? Have we heard anything one way or another?
At the last meeting, the commission had requested additional information from Mr. Lemoyne. I know that he was investigating improved site plans to give more information as to the location, and in particular, the relationship between the location of the shed and the 25-foot riverfront environment. That I have not received any correspondence since the last meeting indicating whether or not Mr. Lemoyne would present that material here. My guess is that he is still investigating a site plan.
All right, and I'll bring this up now, and I'll also bring it up when the applicant comes back. I don't I'm just going to raise this issue for the point of just putting it on the public record. I don't feel that this impacts my further participation in this particular hearing. I don't have an interest either for or against this project one way or another, and I believe I can maintain a neutral, and detached view of this project. I have a family member who attends University of Massachusetts Lowell, and also and since this was for the benefit of Lowell High School, I'm also an employee of the City of Lowell Department of School System. I'm a coach, so, but neither one involve crews, so just to put that out. So if anyone has any objection to my continued participation in this particular project, kindly make it known either to me or to Craig. Moving on, do I have a motion to continue?
I'll offer a motion to continue.
Do I have a second?
Second.
By Commissioner Moore. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on, notice of intent, William Susie Industries LLC. Oh, I have to read this, no way. 5 Dick Tracy Drive. Where's this? In Pelham, New Hampshire. All right, the project DP file number 2060681. The project location is 585, 597, and 601 Merrimack Street. And it's the demolition and construction of a 3-story structure and associated infrastructure in the 100-foot buffer zone to an inland bank, to wit, the Western Canal. And welcome back, Mr. Pesnola. I haven't seen you in a number of years. If you could kindly identify yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates, representing Susie Industries.
And if I may just interrupt you for a second, I just want to call out, this project is on behalf of the Jeanne d'Arc Credit Union, so.
Yes. This is on behalf of Jeanne d'Arc Credit Union. It is for a new 15,000 square foot, 3-story office and branch bank. It is the relocation of the Merrimack and Cabot branch just down a few blocks. As far as the interest to this commission, we are abutting on the downtown side, the Western Canal. So we have just the area which is buffer zone to the land under that's associated with the canal. The site as it presently exists is 35,000 square feet. There are currently 2 buildings on it that house the health center in both buildings. The site's essentially paved other than buildings. There's about a 4-foot differential from the front of the site on Merrimack to the back of the site on Moody Street. All of the stormwater from both the roofs and the majority of the site heads back to Moody Street, where it enters into 2 catch basins within the combined city system. Our proposal would demolish the 2 buildings, take up all of the pavement, start anew, develop 2 entrances, or a one-way circulation pattern entrance to the south exit to the north, and establish a teller area for 2 ATM tellers against the building and 2 drive-up teller windows, pneumatic tubes here, and a 45-car parking lot around the building itself. We are going to elevate the site in the back to make it more level, to make it conducive to the proposed use, and we're closing off the Moody Street entrance. We are proposing a brand new stormwater management system where none exists now. That will be comprised of 2 catch basins in the back of the site. Each catch basin will be deep sump hooded, That will convey to oil gas grit separators prior to entering into an infiltration area. The infiltration area is about 5,500 cubic feet, 24-inch pipe, perforated pipe in stone. We've done geotechnical investigation, and we feel the bottom of that system is 4 feet above seasonal high water, which also happens to coincide with the elevation of the water in the canal. So we're providing full treatment, attenuation, and recharge in full compliance with DEP stormwater guidelines, and vastly decreasing, if not eliminating, well, we are eliminating the flow to the combined system. We are not taking any credit for the existing impervious. We are fully capturing all of the impervious from the site and putting it into that system. So it's a fully contained system. I do have revisions. We have been to planning board, and this has been reviewed by all the city departments, including wastewater utility and Lisa DeMayo's office. And we have incorporated revisions to the grading, drainage, and utility plan. And I can go over those. It's just whether you want me to pass these out first. They're minor revisions, but one of the revisions does address on point one of Craig's comments in the name of the commission with regard to erosion control. The revisions, the major revision was in circulation. The entrance drive-through was narrowed in accordance with the traffic engineer, Mr. Eby's recommendations to simplify it. So it went from 3 lanes to 2 lanes, less impervious, and less impervious proximate to the canal. Additionally, the plan now notes erosion control along the canal in way of a silt fence. We don't think there'll be much contributing area to that because there's a retaining wall that runs along the canal, which defines our site. And there's a partial walkway along that. The other revision, one of the other revisions was we met with Historic with regard to the ongoing improvements of the canal walk. We had proposed a 4-foot walk that connected Moody Street to Merrimack Street. They wanted to butt that up against the wall and expand it to 8 feet. To do that and preserve some of the mature trees that are along the canal, what we're proposing is just to cut those out and do tree wells at the 2 locations where there are mature trees, and where the walk will be 8 feet wide. It's plenty of passage left with those probably 3x4 tree wells. I'm calling them tree wells because the city's now abandoned the use of tree grates. They don't want those anymore. So basically we have an open mulch area or stone dust area, which is what the current practice is, and that's what we'll be implementing along there. Other than that, it was some cleanup, the addition of a 3rd new street tree on Merrimack to the right of the proposed entrance, so more greenery along the canal. So essentially, that's the project. It's redevelopment, or although we're not taking any credit for the redevelopment, it is a buffer zone project, and I think it's a vast improvement in the addition of a comprehensive stormwater management system. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
The floodways can contain entirely within the Western Canal's walls?
Yes.
All right. I have no further questions. Commissioner Lovely?
No question.
Commissioner Chalupka?
I don't know if you already addressed this and I missed it, but did you talk about what you'd be doing to keep debris from falling into the canal?
As far as during construction or after
Yeah,
construction?
during construction.
We have not, but we can certainly erect a snow fence or a construction fence along that way to help keep that debris out. Mr. Susie's here. He'll be the contractor, making sure the site stays clean, and that doesn't happen. But certainly we can implement a construction snow fence along the top of that wall to keep anything from blowing from the site onto, into the canal.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Varnum?
What plan do you have to protect the mature trees along the canal during construction?
We can't protect them in the normal sense in putting snow fencing around the drip line, because we're going to be establishing these 3x4 openings in or putting the concrete walk as close as 1.5 to 2 feet away from the tree trunk. So it's a little, we're not making any grade changes there, so I'm not worried about undermining the tree or impairing the root system. But it's going to be, we're going to have to work in that area with care, with machinery, so as not to hit the trunks, which is normally why we want to really keep that snow fence out by the drip line, so they don't get banged up. But we'll have to ring it with snow fence in a tighter perimeter, and just instruct the site contractors to take special care as they're moving machinery in that area and doing the demolition of the building, because the building is the existing building's in close proximity. So there'll have to just be extra measures on the part of the site contractor to do that.
I would think you'd need to make it clear to people working on the site that those trees were planning to be saved.
I think we can definitely demarc them with by ringing them with the snow fence. It's just not the normal practice of bringing that snow fence out to the drip line. That's not going to afford them the greatest protection. So yeah, we have to make sure the site contractor is diligent, understands the importance of saving them and not hitting them. Would welcome a condition if the trees are damaged. Obviously, they'd be replaced.
Commissioner Moore?
So all the rainwater from the roof as well is going to be conveyed to the infiltration bed?
Yes.
And how is that conveyed? Is it just surface flow to the?
It's a
catch
3-story flat building, so there'll be roof drains, scuppers on the top that'll have an internal conveyance system, pipe system, down through the basement and then out the basement wall, directly to the infiltration system at 2 points at the 2 sides, just flanking the drive-through. So.
Okay, and for the O&M, who's going to actually do the maintenance of the grit removal system and all that?
John, Gene Dark has maintenance contracts for all of their sites, and it will be that contractor, and they give them not only the O&M, but we've included logs in the O&M for them to be filled out.
Right.
So.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mellon?
No further questions.
Mr. Chairman, I have not received the DEP file number notice, but I did go online today, and we have been issued a file number and
681.
and there's no comments from DEP.
I should have brought this up at the beginning of the hearing, but like the last meeting, and I have a family member who is an officer of a direct competitor of the Jeanne d'Arc. I don't think that clouds my judgment in this, but I know she's good friends with many folks over at the Jeanne d'Arc, so.
Planning board, Mr. Frechette is a competitor of Jeanne d'Arc, and he disclosed that as well and did not recuse himself.
Yeah, at this point in time, I'd like to open it up for comments. Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments regarding this project? Kindly, yes, Mr. Goldman, kindly identify yourself for the record.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Conservation Commission, my name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. Wish to vote in favor of this and urge the commission to vote in favor of this with a standard order conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Is there anyone else who would like to offer their comments or concerns regarding this project? All right. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the hearing?
Seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Moore. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Do I have a motion on this? I think there's been some issues raised with respect to protection of the trees along the canal bank, the mature trees.
I move to issue a Lowell standard order on this project with the additional special condition that the mature trees along the canal that are slated to be saved should be protected at the highest level possible, and the site manager be aware of their protected condition.
Second.
By Commissioner Chalupka. As by way of discussion, do we want to be more specific with respect to the protection? I believe Mr. Piznola mentioned some snow fence, and when you say that, do you mean the orange bee netting, or do you mean the staked and wired snow fencing?
No, just the orange plastic.
The bee netting? Okay.
Would there be any way to use the older wooden snow fencing? That's what I had in mind. That would provide some protection if something banged into it.
Yeah. We'll either do that or come up with something comparable with multi-stakes within that, the orange snow fencing, so that it's not just the orange plastic fencing that's securing it. The orange fencing becomes kind of the warning sign, and the multi-stakes around it. But if we can get the old snow fence with the wire connector, then we'll do that.
Thank you. So I'll clarify that condition, that it be protected with multiple stakes and snow fencing of the best possible kind.
Yeah, if I could comment, that orange netting is, the great thing about that is it's reusable. And chances are that stake and wire stuff, once it's been on a construction site and banged around a little bit, it gets pretty randy and it is generally disposed of. So, I as far as a 3-axle truck backing into either one, it's, I don't think it's gonna matter whether it's plastic or wood. But I guess what I meant as far as the protection would be to maintain the fencing along the drip line as much as possible, only to move it to the extent as is immediately necessary to do the particular work around those areas. To keep the big vehicles from, and the smaller repetitive vehicles from, compacting that area and damaging the root systems.
We can look at the sequencing on construction of the sidewalk, and that can come late in the game, so that some of the bigger building work and site infrastructure is done, and then that becomes kind of one of the finish items, so that we can, during the big construction, keep that fence out as far as we can.
All right, I know that adds a bit of cost here, you know, and complicates the matter, at least on that side of the project, but I think it's a worthy goal.
Certainly.
Move to incorporate that into my condition.
All right, do I have a second on the order as, did we have a second on? Oh, yeah, we did. Do I have a second on the change by Commissioner Varnum?
I'll second it.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor of the change?
Aye.
And any opposed? The ayes have it. All in favor of the original motion?
Aye.
Oh, any opposed? The ayes have it. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, can I clarify that the additional final element to that, which is when appropriate, explore moving the snow fencing out to the drip line of the trees?
I'm sorry, could you start that again? I didn't.
I wanted to ensure that I incorporated the last element of that motion correctly, which was when a construction sequencing allows, explore moving the snow fencing out to the drip line of the trees. Was that the extent of the last
Yeah,
revision?
it's to keep the fencing, the demarcation line along the drip edge to the maximum extent possible, only to remove it inboard and to allow work inboard at the, you know, at the least intrusive and last possible moment, just to finish those areas around the trees. It's mainly to keep the heavy equipment off the root systems and compacting those areas, because that's what causes the damage. Do we have any other items on the agenda?
Yeah, under other business, I believe we have a presentation.
This is National Grid? No.
Good evening. My name is Jason Naden. I'm an environmental engineer with National Grid. And we had been in conversations with Craig. Hope you enjoyed your vacation, Craig. For a little while, we were back in front of you guys back in the spring for a site off of Cayenne Street. And we're doing an environmental investigation on that, and you gave us a negative determination for that, and that's great. In conversations with Craig, while we were doing this investigation, which was just recently completed last week, we determined it necessary for public safety reasons to place some additional fencing along the area in Cayenne Street. Obviously, there's existing fence that's already there, so it's not necessarily a wildlife issue, but it is within the buffer zone of the Pawtucket Canal, even though the fencing that we installed it would in fact be a minor activity. But Craig thought it would be really important to just kind of show you a couple different pictures of what was done and just get your feedback on the project. We did work extensively over the past week with Christine O'Connor's office, specifically David Fenton and Adam, the assistant city manager as well. And we did have a meeting that included Sarah Brown, just to let them know a little bit about the project. And we did work rather extensively on this. So this is the way that we all came together to kind of take care of the public safety issue. So I don't know if I can give this to Craig here. We have a couple pictures of, it's the same vantage point of the same location on Cayenne Street, which is a, can I approach the commission?
Absolutely.
So I wanted just to obviously come in front of you guys and let you know exactly what kind of transpired, get the feedback, and hear a little bit. I'm sure Craig has some details as well that he could probably share with you, but I'm here to answer any questions that you might have This is an extension of that investigation that we did before. I have my licensed site professional who was also with me, Joe Higgins from Innovative Engineering Solutions. He's the LSP that oversees and controls all of the response actions. It's a 21E MCP site, and we're in the process of defining the investigation. In fact, this was an offset of that investigation. We're continuing with that, moving towards an eventual remedy of the property. So this is something that occurs on these type of sites as we move forward.
So this is in response to the numerous borings that were taken on the site?
That's right. We obtained extensive amount of analytical data, and through that determined that this was the best way to do a short-term measure to take care of some public safety issues that we might have encountered. And this was the most expedient way, and certainly one that was most acceptable to the city of Lowell.
All right, are there any, I know the pictures will circulate, but are there any questions? I'm just, thanks for coming in, basically, and letting us know how it's progressing.
Appreciate that.
Craig had contacted me earlier regarding this, and I don't know if he caught you in time, but at least for me, I obviously appreciate you coming in, but I think, for future reference, until you start doing some and real impacts with respect to altering the site, and I understand that's coming down the road, and we'll obviously see you at that point in time. But these minor things, especially since we have an LSP right on site, just, send us the pictures, send us a note what you're doing, and I think that'll satisfy. If we have any questions, we'll ask you to come in, but just to, save you these late nights and
Many thanks.
I was just wondering, I'm sorry. You have some booms in the canal over there, do you?
Yeah, Joe can speak to that as well. It's a separate matter.
I just wondered if those were going to be staying in place for the winter, or what the plans were.
We are waiting until, it's our understanding that they're going to draw down the canal sometime soon. There are 2 sets of booms out there. There's the outer absorbent booms that are floating, and then there's that system that we built that we came in front of you folks for last fall. That boom system that's up close to the wall is staying. The outer booms, they're serving no need at this point, no purpose. Everything is being caught by that inside boom, and the reason why we're waiting until they partially drain the canal is so we can change some of the material out in the inside boom to get ready for winter.
any further questions, comments? Okay. All right, thanks for coming in. Sorry it took so long to get to you.
Long night for everybody, so thank you.
All right. And unless we have anything else to discuss tonight, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a couple things to sign.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.